We made it.
We made it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hi.
Hi.
Hi. How's it going?
How's it going? It's
Good.
great.
All right.
Man, if I was any better, I'd be twins.
You'd be if you were better, you'd be twins. I don't know how
Yeah.
you manage that, but geez, because that'd be like going back in time and having you split in half and then still form twice. I don't know how twins work.
It'd be something. It'd be something. Two of me might be able to handle things better than one of me, I think, maybe.
That's a fair statement. Hopefully.
But I don't know if the world could handle two of me.
I don't know if you could handle two of you.
Oh, yeah. That'd be, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, never mind.
That's
okay.
Yeah.
Forget that. Forget I said that.
Fair enough. All right. Welcome to Don't Worry Wednesday. This is a show where we don't talk about politics because we found out that would be called Worry Wednesday and not Don't Worry Wednesday. If you're looking for Worry Wednesday, go turn on the news. Welcome to Don't Worry Wednesday, where we talk about you guys and whatever situations you're going through. Life can be a difficult ride at times. Sometimes it is not, but sometimes it really is. And having someone there to even just talk about whatever the issues are we're going through, even just to relate or to encourage us along our way. Sometimes we already know the way back to, security or away from our problems, and sometimes we don't. So I think in both cases, it's nice to have someone there with us, someone who we can talk to and can talk about the topic or about the issues. And so that's what we're here to do, to help you not worry so much about them by allowing us to let go, by discussing these things and getting a better hold on them mentally, so that we're prepared to go through what we need to do, to go through what we need to go through to solve our problems. So anyhow, we aren't professional psychologists or psychiatrists or anything along those lines, but we can be here to give you our best and our experiences personally. So yeah, that's what I got. If you want to submit a topic, we would greatly appreciate it. We are down to only 3 topics left on our queue, and so that means we're running thin. We hope that we will be able to get some more topics from you guys. Not that we hope you guys go through problems.
Yes.
So if you're going through a problem and it's not a big deal, it still could be something worth sharing. And if it's you don't have any problems, well then that's awesome. I'm not gonna tell you to write a topic about something that you aren't actually experiencing. So don't worry about it. But either way, we hope you great happiness, and if you do have a topic, please submit it to don'tworrywednesday.com. Again, that's just the name of the show, don'tworrywednesday.com, and just submit a topic. Click the button, and you'll be on your way. Tell it that you're human. In case you weren't sure what you are, put down human.
Yeah.
That's right.
Be sure.
Be sure. So, you'll make a topic about not having enough problems and it being a worry. That's fair, and that's one I relate to at times. I remember there was a time in my life where I was like literally praying to God for a problem, and it came. And then I sort of half regretted it. I was like, God, life is too easy right now, and I know I'm supposed to be growing through my problems, but I don't have any problems to grow through. So can you help me? And he's like, yeah, here you go. And that went pretty bad. So it happens, and I learned.
Hey,
It was good. It answered my prayer, and I did learn through it, so that's fine. Anyhow, yeah. How you guys doing in the chat today? How are you doing, Joe?
Fantastic. I already told you.
Oh yeah, you started off. We started off the stream asking that question, didn't we?
If I was any better, I'd be twins.
Yeah, and then we talked about how that would require you to go back into the...
That would, and then that wasn't feasibly possible. So yeah.
Yeah.
No, but Ash. Thank you, Ash. You're volunteering to make yourself go through problems.
Oh no.
For us.
No, don't do that.
You
Sweetheart,
know,
don't do that.
that's such the sentiment is so beautiful, but oh
That's
my gosh, please
horrible.
don't.
Don't do that. That's not gonna be good.
I'm sorry you're not doing too good.
Yeah.
I've definitely been not doing too good before.
Hmm.
I know what that's like.
Yeah.
It can be tough,
Yeah.
for sure. And yes, Neon Sight, you can make a topic about having not enough problems
That's an honest
and
topic.
being worried
That's
about
something
that.
I
I
can
mean,
relate
like,
to.
well, yeah, you just explained, didn't you, Ryan? You were just
Yeah.
talking about how, like, you're
Yeah.
like, hey, give me more problems and da 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 da
Yeah.
da. Yeah. You got to be careful what you ask for, though.
Oh, you got a COVID booster and your whole body is just sore. Oh my gosh. Yeah, my head hurts
Oh,
and
yeah.
no, that's quite understandable. I mean, honestly, I didn't get the booster or any of it,
Hmm.
just because I understood that basically to get a vaccine, I'm gonna get sick, and I didn't want to, um,
Hmm.
because that's the way that works.
Yeah.
You get
I got I got
yourself
sick
sick on
for like a
purpose.
day when I got sick for like a day when I got my vaccines,
Mm-hmm.
my COVID shots. Each time I got the shot, whether it was the first one, the second one, the booster, whatever, I'd get sick for like 24 hours, right? And then I got
Yeah.
COVID and I was sick for like 10 days,
Mm-hmm.
and that was
Yeah, you got
fun.
COVID anyways, right?
I did, yeah, I know, right? It's
Yeah.
like just how it works.
Yeah.
Whatever.
It's
But
literally how it works, but whatever.
hey, here
Not
I
to be
am.
like an anti-vaxxer, but hey, um, you know, we can test the science now that we've gone
Hey,
through it all.
yep, yep. And
Hmm.
there's new strains and all that kind of stuff.
Yep,
Uh, oh, your first COVID shot wasn't too bad, huh?
that's
Okay.
good. I'm glad.
Yeah,
I'm
mine
glad.
mine laid me out for a day. It was weird,
Mm.
but or maybe I'm just a wimp. That could be too.
Hey, that's true.
There are people that know me. Yes, Ryan knows.
It could be that, but
Ryan
I
knows
feel
me
that
well.
way
He's like, yeah,
sometimes too.
Joe's a big wimp.
I think about that a lot because there's definitely different tolerances to different things, and our bodies also react wildly different to different sicknesses. And so, like, some people I know, it's like they go through something, and I'd be like, I would never, like, that would never stop me. But then I go through something, and they'd be like, what? That would never stop me. It's like, especially like the cold thing, right? For me, like, the being cold is just like, that is so painful for me, right? And that's not a normal thing. So it's like,
Right.
when I was growing up, I was wondering, I'm like, am I just terribly intolerant? Am I just like a wimp? Like, what is going on here? But I figured everyone else was experiencing pain the same way, and I was just a wimp, so I stuck through it. And then later on, I figured out, no, this is like an actual thing that most people don't have, and I was like, okay, that's kind of reassuring. So yeah,
Yep. I remember the first
interesting.
time you explained that to me. It kind of blew my mind a little bit because I'd never heard of it before.
Yeah, right, and it's so rare.
That ultra sensitivity to cold.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I put my hand like on just a normal like table, like glass or granite or whatever, and I actually feel pain just by touching that
Mm,
material.
mm.
Which a lot of people just go, "What? That doesn't make sense." Um, so it is
Well,
pretty
so you don't
strange.
have you don't have to pray for more problems. You got that, and just go
Yeah,
touch
I'll
something
just go
cold.
hold like I'll go grab an ice cube. I'll have plenty of
Yeah.
problems then.
Oh my gosh. And then you'll be like, oh, and then yeah, you can
Yeah, that's right.
exactly
Good call.
be perfect.
Mm-hmm. So what do you say we speaking of problems, what do you say we get the show rolling? I
Sure,
know that we
we
have a couple of
totally
topics
can
here we
do
can
that.
do.
Hmm.
Awesome. So, yeah, Saule is here, right? I mean, you said some words earlier, Saule. I just want to make sure that you are still here now, because we got a topic from you. Yes. Okay. Cool. 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 Um, well, let's start with that one. That one's our well, other than Baka, that's our oldest one. So we'll just do it. Um,
All right. Oh wait,
cool.
didn't we do this one already?
From Saule? Uh-oh.
The anger management
It
one.
is
Didn't
anger
we do the
management. Oh,
anger
we already did
management
this
one?
one. I'm sorry, I didn't clear this last time. See? Well, let me just say we already did it. It's answered. It was last week. Let's fill out the forum. I'm sorry. Um,
Oh yeah. that was the anger management. I was like,
Yeah,
yeah, we did
sorry.
that one. That's all
That
right.
was that was uh was my fault. So it's the 25th. Okay. 125. All right.
Yes, we need to
125.
make new topics. Registered nurse. I mean, right now.
Right now. Yeah. If you got
It's
them,
funny
send them.
because because people say RN and it means right now, in
Mm-hmm.
chats and stuff like that.
Registered
And I
nurse.
always think registered nurse.
Nice. Okay, that means we only got two topics, guys. So that means we're gonna need some topics. Anyways, that's totally cool.
Okay, you can give us topics in the chat too. We'll
Yeah,
take those.
yeah. While you guys are thinking about things to write down for us to do, we're just gonna go through this other topics from an anonymous. Um, this one, I don't think we did. No. Yeah. No. This one is titled "Creativity and Ending a Story," and I'm gonna pull the topic up, and I will do my best to read it for you. The topic is live on the screen right now, so if you would like to read along, feel free to do so.
Hmm.
It reads as follows. Recently, I've been struggling with creativity. How do I end a story? I can make a beginning and reach a climax, and am even aware of what I want the end result of the climax to be. But what about the aftermath of it all? Any advice on how to conclude a story? Ah, that's a pretty good question.
hmm
Yeah, that's a pretty good question. How do you how do you conclude a story after the climax? I mean, there's so many fairy tales that end with a happy ever after ending,
hmm
or a marriage, or everyone dead on the floor, which is
hmm
an interesting thing. The definition of a tragedy in when it comes to literature, definition of tragedy is when a story ends with everyone dead on the floor, and the literal translation of comedy is when a story ends with a wedding. And so those are two options, which I'm thinking are probably not where you're heading with your story, and that's very, very
Hmm.
thin. That's only two examples of many different possible things. So how to end a story is a really great question, and I've got some ideas in my head of resources that you could look into, but for now, I'm excited to see what Joe's got to say on this. Yeah, so Joe, take it away. It's all yours.
How to end a story. Man, I would say like for what Ryan said, there are the classic ways that you can do it with a happily ever after or everyone dead on the floor. And I've
Mm-hmm.
seen I've seen movies with both. Well, not both in the same story.
I'd like to
Actually,
see that.
actually,
I might have seen that.
there was
Mm-hmm.
a movie that kind of had both in the end,
Mm-hmm.
but they were already married. They just rode off into the sunset, like it with their whatever. But everybody that they were fighting against ended up dead on the floor,
Oh,
and
okay.
that was, yeah. So like,
Fair enough.
so so it kind of had both in there. It was pretty cool. But it was pretty gory too. But anyway, you could end a story in all kinds of ways. I mean, you can set it up as a cliffhanger for another story. You can set it
Mm-hmm.
up, as uh I've seen recently. I saw a movie. I don't even remember what it was called. It was about kind of like the end of the world type of situation where like there's all this apocalyptic stuff happening and whatnot. And then it just kind of ended with they went through this whole situation and whatever, and then they were driving but this cloud was following them, like that was consuming everything and whatever, and like then they were driving their Jeep and this cloud was following them, and then it ended and then the credits came up.
Oh, so it gives you the idea of like, well, it could have gone either ways. You don't know.
Yeah, like they might live, they might die, like you figure it out. And I'm like sitting there going like, well, what happened to him?
Yeah, that's
Like
rough.
so I mean you could probably just end it however you want. I mean, based on that example, you don't have to tie loose ends together if you don't want to. You can leave people guessing. There's all kinds of ways. Um, you look at Criminal Idol season 1, and that was ended with the person who brought the bomb in to the venue was revealed, but there's a whole bunch of story like beyond Haruka being the bomber. She's not actually the bomber. She was just kind of the person who brought it with her, but it wasn't her plan. And so there's a whole bunch more that's going to unfold in Criminal Idol season 2. So it was set up for a sequel,
Hmm.
right? And so I generally like stories that end with some kind of a cliffhangery type of thing where it's like setting it up for more, because but of course then you're wanting that more to happen, and you might have to wait to know, like until the whoever's creating it, has to, put in the work to create the next season or the next episode or whatever, you know but really, I don't know. I'm not a story writer, but I'm a story reader.
Hmm.
And I do enjoy stories where there's some kind of a win at the end, you know, where if somebody's going through a bunch of hardships in that story, like if they get some kind of like throw them a bone, please, like a little bit, like just just give them some kind of a win, that would be great. But I know that, excuse me, I know that doesn't always happen. Sometimes they end up dead on the floor. Sometimes that person goes through all that stuff and he still ends up failing and dying or whatever, and then the evil person wins. But I don't know. It just kind of depends on what you're feeling. I mean, you, you can end it however you want. Now, Ryan has a lot more experience in coming up with stories and in telling stories, so I'm looking forward to what he has to say. But from my perspective, I would just say, man, if you're a story writer and you can make a beginning, you can reach a climax, you can come up with, you know, like what happens at the end of the climax and all that kind of stuff. There are ways that things unfold. You can draw from personal experiences, like, okay, if I was in this situation, how would I want this to end up? And you could go in that direction of, like whatever you personally would want to happen, you can make that happen. Or you can say, okay, I would want this to happen, so I'm going to make the opposite thing happen. I'm going to make, like, oh, okay. So like this couple, they're going to go through all this stuff together and it's supposed to bring them together, but then they're going to break up and then they're going to be mad at each other and they're going to hate each other for the rest of their lives. And, we're going to have this not happily ever after ending, and which
Hmm.
you can do whatever you want. So anyway, I don't know. I don't know if that's helpful or not. Maybe I just brought more questions to your mind. That's a possibility. But really, I think the best thing I can do is have Ryan talk about this, because he has come up with some incredible stories with some great twists, and and twisted and turned people and had people guessing and done all this kind of stuff, and then tied it all together. And it'd be great if we had Joe on here, who helped with the writing of Criminal Idol season 2
Mm.
with you.
Yeah,
That would be really cool too. But Ryan's here, and he's good at this stuff. So Ryan,
I'll give him my best.
it's all yours, man. Yes.
Yeah, thanks. You know, I'm not a well-known story writer, but I sort of kind of am. I mean, I write stories, and a lot of my music is story-based, and those are definitely different things. But when you've got a story and you've got to try to figure out the end, here's some pointers that I can give. Um, Personally, I like when. I mean, here's a question for yourself. Now, you have to ask yourself a little bit of a question here about your audience, about who you're trying to cater to. Are they people that are like yourself, or are they people that are unlike yourself? And that's a good question to ask. But personally, when I walk away from a movie or walk away from a story in a book or an audio or whatever it is, right? My favorite thing is when I walk away and my brain is still buzzing.
Mm.
My brain is still buzzing about what I just witnessed or what I just experienced. My favorite thing is when I walk away from a story and it's not buzzing in the sense of not necessarily buzzing in the sense of like, oh no, the conflict wasn't resolved, but more so buzzing in the sense of, what now, Ryan? Like, it makes me ask internal questions that I have to solve for myself. It makes me ponder the world I live in or the reality that I live in. It makes me readjust what my focus is on, my perception of reality is. I really like when I walk away from something and the experience is what ifs, in my brain, and just like, maybe it's like, what if we had these superpowers, how would that pan out in our world? Or what if this sort of thing happened to me, or I'm gaining a piece of like wisdom or a nugget of wisdom, or learning something about myself that I didn't recognize before. And those are hard to necessarily know whether or not the audience is going to experience that or not, because each person is an individual in a different setting in their life, right? But if you have the ability to make your story play in someone's mind after they're done reading it or done experiencing it through whatever medium is being given to them, if you have the ability to make them think about the life that they're living, what they're doing with their lives, or to search within what you just gave them to find a nugget of wisdom for themselves, I think that for me, those are the best. Those are the best endings. And so what I would recommend to do that is look within yourself and find those pieces of wisdom, those pieces of information that have challenged yourself throughout your life and changed your perspective, or changed who you are, changed the way you think about the world around you, and make that the keynote of your ending. And you can do this many ways, by having the main characters literally discuss it, or have a monologue where they open up about something, or something along the lines of what Joe was saying, an unfinished ending where it sort of just trails off, but it trails off in a direction that makes you go, oh, he's trailing off in a new direction based on the things that he witnessed and went through, or she, whatever it is, whatever the main character is, right? You can tell that there's a difference in the way they hold themselves, and that makes you ponder about yourself similar things that the character went through. It makes you ask similar things about yourself that the character went through and discovered. I think there's a lot of ways to do that, and there's so many examples out there. But one thing I could do for you is think about the movies that you've experienced or the stories that you read, and think about the ones that really made you walk away thinking more about them than you expected, and re-watch those endings, reread those endings. And it's okay to follow their system. It's okay to follow the setup that they'd used. Authors do that all the time, right? I mean, everything at this point you could say is plagiarized, because nothing is entirely new, right? We operate out of a language that has its own order and etc. So it's okay to follow in the footsteps of giants in that way, right? So
Mm-hmm.
maybe you like anime. Go pull up an anime that you remember. At the end, it made you just sit there and go, whoa, and think and think and think after it's already been finished, and you just kind of like almost walk away in meditation because you're like,
Mm-hmm.
wow, you know, or maybe a time you were at the movie theater and the thing ended and you just kind of like felt like you should sit there for a while even though everybody else is getting out of their seats. Um, Revisit those moments and watch how they did their stories. Watch how they ended their story and follow in suit. And I think it's a fine way to do it. You know, my songs, again, a lot of them are stories, and I get a lot of people who say, that it's been impactful in their life, and that's great. Um, and I'm not trying to say that I'm not trying to boast or brag in any by any means, but my point of bringing that up is to give you a direction of like if you put a nugget of wisdom in people's brains that they recognize that you just did that for them, that you reckon, like when you cause people to recognize that you just changed the way that they think a little bit, that that's huge. That's huge to people. People love that. People people experience that on a deep level because you just touched them deeply and they don't forget those things. They don't. That is huge to people, right? Because it's inherently deep. So therefore, of course, it's going to be a game changer to them. It's what made them move through the next couple of steps in their life, and it's a big deal. So
Mm-hmm.
that's why I feel personally like one of the best things you can do for ending a story is to impart wisdom and goodness into people's hearts and into their minds and into their souls, because then they go forward from life with a changed self because of
Mm.
something you placed in them. And that is huge. That is probably one of the most magnificent things you can do with a story, right? Um, a lot of times, like a lot of artists, when it comes to, whether it's visual, audible, story written, whatever it is, all these kinds of creativity, even just, woodworking, when they I mean, a lot of artists, what we want to do is communicate. And when we see someone who's experienced something beyond just like hearing it and enjoying it, when we see that they've fully engaged in it and like, wow, I felt the emotion of that. When you look at a picture on the wall and you're like, wow, this artist is really good at depicting emotion. I feel the emotion. I feel the emotion when I look at it. How is that possible? We've, as an artist, we go, wow, I did a good job, right? Like that's, and it's not like self-serving, like wow, I did a good job, but it's like that's the best compliment. That's the best compliment. And so watch the things or listen to the things or read the things that touched you deeply. Or if it's a picture, stare at the picture that touched you deeply. Beauty touches our soul in such a profound way, and that isn't to be ignored. Beauty is it's a un, it's hard to comprehend because it's out there in the world and it's not a science. It's not something that we can explain with science, but it's something that's very real and it touches us and it changes us inside. So beauty ought to be sought after. It's a very good thing to seek after beauty, right? Um,
Mm.
and so and to not distort it or to defile it, right? To just look at beauty and just absorb it and that purity, right? And just take it in, and then find out how do you like. That's what you're asking. How do I do that? How do I make my ending like that? What I'm saying is look to those things. Stare at that picture. Read that story, whatever it is that's touched you in a deep, profound way. Maybe it's a thing that began your whole writing journey. The whole reason you storytell may be because of something you experienced through another story. And so I would say revisit that and study. Study carefully how they did theirs. And then impart that beauty, impart that like that deep, soul touching beauty onto others. Um, and I think that's how you end a story. That's the best way to end a story. And I recognize that's not a guideline of like do this, say this word, then put this paragraph after it, and then that I can't give you that, right? I don't even know what your story's about, so obviously I can't do that. But I can give you a direction, and that's the direction I want to give you because I feel like personally, my experience is that's the best. Those are the best endings. Um, Other people might have a different have different feelings, and that's why I said, "What's your target audience?" Because your target audience might not care about that. But I mean, if you're typing here to "Don't Worry Wednesday," even as an anonymous person, like I have a feeling that that sort of thing rings with you as well, since it's kind of what "Don't Worry Wednesday" is a lot about too. So, yeah. That's all I got to share. Joe, did you have anything else you want to add on that?
Yeah, I do. Well, I do
Good.
like what you were talking about, and really, it's like what type of feeling do you want to impart? Ryan's talking about know who you're writing to. What are you writing for? Why? Ask yourself, why am I writing this? Is it just to entertain people? Is it to, make them feel certain feelings? Is it to hold them in the palm of your hand? Like, is there, do you want to take people through twists and turns? Do you want, and then
Do you
how do
have a
you want
political
to
agenda?
leave them? Yeah, yeah. Do you
And
have
it's
a
totally fine
political
if you do.
agenda?
It's totally fine if you do,
Do
by
you,
the way.
hmm Do you have a social agenda? Do you have a political agenda? Do you
Mm-hmm.
have some kind of an agenda whatsoever? Are you trying to, what type of message are you trying to impart to people? Are you trying to impart a feeling of hope? Are you trying to impart a feeling of despair? Are you trying to take them through this story, and how do you want to leave your reader? What type of feeling do you want them to be left with? And then from there, you can tie things together in a way that leaves them with that feeling. Like, how would you feel if this happened? How would you feel if that happened? And then as the story resolves and as things kind of go back, you go through the situation of the story, you get to the climax, you get to the big, moment where everything kind of comes together, and then everything kind of starts to fall off and resolve, and then you have this kind of like aftermath whatever feeling. Do you want to impart wisdom to them, or did you just want to take them for a ride, and then at the end everything kind of goes back to normal?
Is it a
you know
comedy? You can. I mean, Saladay's got some
is
good
it a
examples of
comedy?
how you can literally end it with a comedy, or as a joke. I mean, not necessarily comedy as in a wedding, but comedy as in a joke.
Oh, I gotcha. It's because
Hmm.
I was really like, yeah, make it a comedy, end it with a wedding, then it'll be
Yeah,
hilarious.
yeah,
um
that's funny. A wedding. Oh, a wedding. That's funny.
Boy, they're in for it. Ha
Yeah. Ha, 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 ha.
ha.
That's great.
Happily ever after. Let me tell you something.
Hmm.
I'm not bitter.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm not bitter.
oh man. But anyway, so like, what do you want? How do you want to leave the reader? And think about that. And do you want them to be left feeling tense, feeling bound up, waiting for a resolution that can come with your next installment of this story? Do you want to leave them with a feeling of resolve, a feeling of peace, a feeling of, okay, everything's kind of figured out now and we're moving on to our next stage of life and everything's good? Or do we want to end it with a bit of mystery, a question, like, how are we doing this? And what Ryan was talking about just kind of sparked this in my head, where it's like, okay, you get to choose how you leave them as the creator of this story. And if that's the last piece they're going to read, that's what they're going to be left with.
Hmm.
And so
In some ways,
really,
the end of the story could be more important than the climax. Some
it could.
ways.
Hmm. Yep. Now that's not to put pressure on you and say,
Mm-mm,
"Oh no,
mm-mm.
this, like this is the most important part." No, I'm just telling. Okay, this can give you a direction to run in by saying, "Okay, how do I want them to feel at the end?"
Mm.
And then you can guide the way that you end the story to leave them with that feeling. And it's probably much easier said than done. I have no experience in this field. So, but as I've read many stories and I've watched many movies and I've watched many serieses, um, and you know, you end up left with a certain feeling at the end. And if a lot of times if I go to the movies, I'm left with the feeling of I have to go pee.
Nice. That's a bad ending, honestly. All of a sudden thinking about is at the end of this movie is, man, I really gotta go pee.
I gotta go pee. But anyway, so that's I think that's probably just where I would start, and then from there you can come up with kind of another little mini story to put at the end of your story that leaves them with that whatever feeling you want them to be left with. And I don't know. Hopefully that's helpful. Like I said, I'm not an expert in this area. Ryan is much more of an expert, but what he was saying was uh, it made a lot of sense, and so I think that'd be good. Anyway, that's all I got.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, yeah, I don't have much to add on to that. I gave you my best. And as someone who doesn't write a whole lot of stories, that is my best, unfortunately. I can't give you anything more in depth, but I think that it's a really great topic. So thank you so much for sharing with us, and we hope that we did it justice. But yeah, thanks, Anonymous, and yeah, good luck on your story. I think that's fantastic. It's nice to see some creativity and some ability to make influence on people. It's great. So all the power to you. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. So I guess on to, well, here we are. That was our one topic that we could do because we can't do the other topic because Baka's not here.
Yeah,
And
that's okay. We need topics, guys.
so
We need
guys, we need
topics
topics.
from the
Like that's
chat.
this is the first time in an incredibly long time that we actually need topics from you guys on the spot. So anyone got anything? Anything in your mind? Anything you guys want to talk about? Also, hey there. Nice to
Oh,
see you, Ronya.
oh,
Oh.
we got a new topic.
Oh, we got a new topic. Oh,
We have a
snap.
new
I have a
topic.
topic.
I can process it if you want.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, go for it, man. I'll keep the hold on the show then. Hey guys,
Yeah.
Joe's gonna process the topic while I talk. I'm gonna inform you of the things you already know. So, did you know that the sun is bright? Yeah, it is, and you probably knew that, but I figured I'd tell you. So, anyways, the Earth is made out of atoms. It's great. This is going good for me.
This is it, man. You're doing awesome.
Yeah, doing my best, doing my darndest here. Are you done with that topic yet?
I'm pretty
Okay,
close.
looks like it's on its way. Oh, wow, how did you do that already? How
How
did you
did I
get
do
it?
what?
Wait. Oh, okay, never mind. That's the old topic. I'm just re-looking at it. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and make sure I submit this topic as finished this time. So
Yeah. It's an
Um,
anonymous. This is an anonymous topic.
okay, all right. Well, this one is finished. Answered.
You got it? You got it
Yep.
figured out?
Yep, I got it. I got it. It's all set. Ryan, can you be my new chem teacher? Oh yeah, absolutely. 1 + 1 is 2. 2 + 2 is 4. So okay, speaking of chem, this is pretty cool. They're in onions. Onions, right? They have what's that chemical called? Element of the periodic table. Sulfur. They have sulfur. 4 plus 4 is 25. Dang, you're straight on. Man, your chemistry is perfect, Ash. So in onions, there's sulfur. And sulfur, what happens is
Really?
sulfur attaches, it easily replaces anything that oxygen is attached to, okay? So you have oxygen attached to a bunch of stuff. So like in water, that's H2O, right? So what happens is when the sulfur is released from the onion, when we start cutting it, it gets in our eye and it starts binding and replacing all of the water molecules. And then that gets into our eye and it stings. Our brain has a sensation of, hey, something's happening to our eye. So then you cry to release a bunch of water so that the sulfur has more things to bind with and doesn't bind to your eyeball. Isn't that weird? So what you can do is you take the onion and you just soak it in water before you cut it. And you'll force the sulfur to bind to the water that's in the bowl instead of into your eye when you cut it. So you cut the onion, put it in water, let it sit there for like 5 minutes, take it out. You basically just chop the onion in half, right? Then you soak it in water for 5 minutes, take it out, and then you cut it and you won't have any problems. You can also steam onions. And when you steam an onion, it like really fastly just takes all the sulfur in it and it changes it on a molecular level, but it stays inside the onion and it just like tastes unique and like caramelized, even though it wasn't caramelized. So it's very cool. There's some chemistry for you. It's the food chemistry. 9 plus 10 is 21. 10, 11, 12. Yeah, that seems right. Yeah, seems like valid chemistry. Nice, good call, Frednick. Okay, cool. Did I buy us enough time?
You did. I got it.
Cool.
Done.
Good job. Okay, but now why is it painful to sneeze? Great question. So onions. They've got sulfur in them. Okay, no, sorry, Ash. I don't know the answer to that one. So anyhow, we're going to do a topic. Oh, there it is. It didn't populate right away, but I got it. So this one's from an anonymous. I'm gonna go ahead and okay. Yeah, I'm just gonna post the topic here. This is a topic from an anonymous. It's titled "Missing Memories." Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. I'm gonna go ahead and throw that topic on the screen, and if you guys want to read along, feel free to do so. It reads as follows. Do you all have any memories from when you were kids? I only remember a single event from my childhood. I feel like my life started at 10. I've always felt so isolated at how others recall so much, and yet I went a long time without the ability to be able to get context for who I was. Definitely, definitely or defiantly? Definitely. Thanks. Okay, sorry. Definitely since then, I went on to define who I am, but I always feel like a majority of my childhood was nicked from my memory and continues to haunt me with my frustrations and not being able to remember important details or memorize events. Even when I do remember them, I've never been able to recall the amount of details that seem usual to remember. I'm not really sure how to proceed. I tried to talk to a doctor about it and about an early head trauma incident. There we go. Sorry. I tried to talk to a doctor about an early head trauma incident. Head smashed into a piggy bank. Wow. Okay. That I've been concerned may be the cause. But he stated by now my brain would have rewired itself. Even if he's wrong, is the Is there even any point in chasing the truth? I just feel like even if I figure out what's wrong, I'm sure it wouldn't be fixable, and I would never be able to recover those missing memories of my past. Even if it violates my feelings, would it really be worth the energy? From Anonymous.
Mm.
All right. Wow, that's quite the interesting story here. And sorry for highlighting.
Mm-hmm.
I needed to do that because it was a long read for me, and I was missing my spots. But anyhow, yeah. Actually, Anonymous. I know a lot of people that have barely any childhood memories, and I have some memories from childhood, and then a lot missing. And so that's a pretty common thing. I know a lot of people that say like, um, actually, most memories from their childhood aren't memories they actually have. It's they remember stories and have visualized them, but don't actually have an accurate memory of them. So that's an interesting thing. Um, and and just yeah, see, Nyansai says she barely has any childhood memories as well. So I think that's a pretty common thing. So maybe that's why your doctor is kind of putting it off, if you will, throwing it by the
Mm-hmm.
wayside because they are thinking, well, that's a pretty normal thing to not have memories of your childhood. Um, but then again, I at least am able to recall childhood memories every once in a while of like certain scenarios I went through that are younger than 10. So maybe you do have something, right? Maybe you do have an issue here. But anyhow, that's not necessarily for us to judge whether you do or you don't. But more so, hopefully, we can hash this out and at least get you in a position where you feel either comfortable with chasing or not chasing these, worrying about them or not worrying about them. At least in one way or another, figure out where you go from here. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that's important. And I love that you sort of um, put your question into that category because again, yeah, obviously we aren't qualified to determine those, um, what caused it or
Right.
um, if there is an issue here. But how do you go forward from here, regardless of whether there is, which there likely is, obviously there is some sort of issue going on here. So, yeah, thank you so much for the topic, Anonymous, and I look forward to seeing what Joe has to say about this, as well as what I'll have to say because I'm not quite sure yet, but I'm sure when I get there, I'll get there. So, yeah,
Yes.
Joe,
You'll get there when you get there.
I'll get there when I get there. That's
Yes.
right. So, yeah, Joe,
Really good.
what would you have to add, or what would you have to say to this?
Well, I'd like to agree with Fredneck. Fredneck just posted in the chat. I feel like the ratio of remembered memories versus forgotten memories is pretty small on average, and I
Mm-hmm.
think that's very true. Like even I can remember a lot of incidents from before I was 10 years old, back to when I was 5, back to even I think the earliest memory I have was when I was like 2 or 3, and it was just a split moment of time where I was sitting in the back seat of the car and I was watching my brother run into the preschool that he was going to, and it was snowing, and he had his little hat on, and had a pom pom on the top of it, and he was running in, da 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 da, and I was sitting in the back seat of the car watching through the window him run in there, and the teachers were helping him get inside and stuff. And there's no context for why I would remember that. All I know is that that's my earliest memory. And I have other memories from when I was, from when I was 5, when I was in kindergarten and then first grade. And I remember going through different tests, and I remember, being in class, and I remember different things that I went through. And I remember defining moments along the way that now actually we're digging into with my therapist,
Mm.
because there are things that formed how I think and why I do certain things the way I do them based on things that happened way back. And there was a particular defining moment when I was 7 years old that that we've dug into fairly deeply, and it was it was the first time I'd experienced depression, and all these kinds of different things. And there were defining things that happened there that that we're digging into to kind of help get through all the stuff that we're navigating now with mental health. So it's interesting, to go through that. But Anonymous, first, well, I want to say thank you for the topic, and it's amazing that you would be willing to share this. I appreciate you so much. And you said you've definitely went on to define who you are. And I think that's awesome. And if that's the case, that you have a really good solid idea of who you are and what you're all about and where you're headed and doing these kinds of things. I mean, I don't think there's a huge need for you to go and try and chase memories that are forgotten or that were lost or that you just don't remember for some reason, because you may dig and dig and dig and still not be able to find anything.
Mm-hmm.
And that's okay. Like Ryan was talking about, and Nyansai said in the chat that they barely have any childhood memories. And I know people who barely have any childhood memories as well. And that's okay. It's okay. Maybe it's good to leave those things alone. And I guess, if there ever came some kind of a problem that you couldn't figure out and then you were dealing with it in therapy, that maybe at that point, a therapist might have different ways for you to recall certain moments and certain memories in your life that can help undo some of these little problems that might be happening, right? Like because sometimes we face events and things happen in our lives, and based on those things that happen in our lives, we tell ourselves a personal lie about ourselves, and we believe that lie, and then that lie becomes a label that we tell ourselves. And so then we label ourselves this untrue statement, and then we live our lives based on this untrue label about ourselves. And we have to navigate back to that point to undo that label, right? So sometimes and I've done this with my therapist. I've done this with my priest. I've done this different moments. There have been moments that defined directions that I turned in my life, that I told myself something about myself, and I had to go back to that moment. And most of the time what happened, there was some kind of a wrong that somebody did to me, whether they did it intentionally or not, I don't know, but somebody did something that then made me tell myself this lie about myself. And I had to go back and re-experience the moment and forgive them in order to undo the lie. And then I had to go back to the moment, forgive them, to undo the lie, and then replace it with truth. And that can be a really hard thing to do. It can be a really heart-wrenching and soul-searching thing. There have been lots of tears as I've gone through these experiences, because you go back and you relive these painful moments. And it hurts. One painful moment, I remember, one of these defining moments that I had to forgive someone. I was, I think, in middle school, and I ended up just leaving the room, going into a stairwell, and just bawling my eyes out. Just cried by myself. And I had to go back to that moment of, of that, the thing that happened. And I had to imagine myself face to face with this person who did this thing to me that then caused me to do all this stuff, and then forgive them in order to undo the lie that I had then created myself around and then built a wall, a self-defense wall that was then keeping me from accomplishing things, keeping me from doing things. It was holding me back from a better version of myself, if you will. So there are things that can be done through the use of memories that can help fix a problem if you're facing, some kind of mental health problem or some kind of emotional problem or whatever's going on. Sometimes it takes going back to those moments. But if you don't have those memories, then probably you haven't had something that's defined you, who you are. And you just told us in your statement that you've defined who you are now. And since you know this is good. You may not have any need to go chasing down rabbit holes that may be empty.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you don't remember them, they probably weren't that significant, in my opinion. Now, it's possible that there were significant things that happened that you don't remember. I'm sure in my life there are significant things that I don't remember. There are significant moments, and sometimes it takes journaling to bring that out. I mean, if you want, you can journal if there's something kind of going on that you're having a struggle with, you can journal about it. And sometimes what that does, it will awaken thoughts and memories that you can then kind of hang your hat on, and that can lead you to remembering certain incidents that, oh, this caused me to think this, and that was wrong, and so I need to change that. I need to change that thinking because I've been living with this way of thinking this whole time.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So this is where journaling has been very helpful for me, where I've been able to dig into this. We just had an appointment. I had an appointment with my therapist this past Friday, and we were talking about a few different things to journal about. And she's like, yeah, we're going to be here for a couple months, just so you know. And I'm like, all right, that's cool. But it's just kind of how it works. So anyway, um, I wouldn't, I certainly would not beat yourself up over the fact that you don't remember things from your childhood.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's a normal thing. It's not all, we don't always remember the things, and like Frednick said, we the ratio of things that I remember versus the things that I don't remember is very small. Like, I remember far fewer things than I forget.
Mm-hmm.
And that's probably good,
Mm-hmm.
because there are a lot of things that, probably should just be forgotten. It's okay. But if you've defined who you are and you're in a spot where you're happy where you are and you're moving forward, then sometimes I wouldn't lose any sleep over it. I wouldn't, grind my mental gears to try and figure out and try and remember things that I just can't remember. It's okay. Because really, moving forward is where we want to go.
Hmm.
To look forward to a future is where we want to head to. When we lose sight of that, that's when we can fall into despair, we can lose hope. There's all kinds of things that can happen, and I can vouch for this personally, that when we lose sight of the future, when we lose sight of what we want for the future and what we want our future to look like, when we lose sight of that, man, it can get pretty doggone bleak. And we can spend a whole lot of time looking backwards. And it can be beneficial if we're working to undo certain ways of thinking. But the key when we're looking back to do that The focus needs to be on what I'm trying to do is create a better tomorrow, is create a better future. So then I can feel better now about where I'm heading in the future. Now I know the future is not going to be perfect. I know I'm going to run into things. I know I'm going to run into problems. I'm going to have challenges. I'm going to have struggles. But what I'm leaning toward, what I'm shooting for can then bring me peace and bring me contentment and bring me a joy in what I'm doing now because it's leading me toward something good. So even when we look back at our memories, sometimes we can look back at memories and enjoy those things. Like, man, remember the time when this happened and it was so awesome? I think back to so many road trips that Ryan and I have made together. I think of, all kinds of events that we went to together. And I have some very, very fond memories that I can think back and just smile or laugh or, all kinds of stuff. But what's great about those things is it created a friendship between Ryan and I that then is here now and is planned on lasting forever for the rest of our lives into the afterlife. In the afterlife. Dun, 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 dun. There's a song about the afterlife.
Good. We need one of those.
Yeah. But so anyway, when you're trying to dig into memories, keep the future in mind. Because looking toward a good future, looking toward a purpose, looking toward a definition of who you are and what your future wants to be can create joy in the present. It can create a feeling of nobility, a feeling of virtue, a feeling of, hey, I'm on the right track. This is good. Where I'm heading is good. So I would recommend not getting too bogged down in trying to remember things that are forgotten because they might not mean much. They certainly don't mean as much to you as where you're heading. That I can tell you for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. That's about what I have to say. I'm going to turn it over to Ryan.
All right.
And I'm looking forward to seeing what he has to say, like he is.
Sure. I'll give it my best. And actually, I thought of a lot of things that while you were talking, and some really good thing came up in the chat as well. And I just want to say right off the bat, Joe, I think you did a fantastic job because it's so true. I think it matters a ton, where you're going. And do your memories help to serve that purpose of where you're going? Do they help you along your road better? And to some degree they can, and sometimes they can just get in the way. So it's a mixed bowl of fruit, really. Sometimes the grape is tasty, ripe and tasty, and sometimes the grape is ripe and sour, and it's like, but this is ripe. No, it's sour. Don't know why. Same with strawberries, blueberries, all of them. The only thing that you can trust is bananas. Anyways, they're always good when they're ripe. They're never sour. Never had a sour banana. Anyways, I just wanted to quickly go over something that Princess said, which is important. Sometimes, actually, a lot of times, like a lot of times, our brains intentionally forget and get rid of painful scenarios, painful experiences. Our brains have a mechanic in them where they block specific memories out so that we don't have to deal with them. And that can be good and that can be bad. And sometimes they're worth digging into, and sometimes it's just like, oh, it's just something minor. It doesn't really matter. So the question is like, how do I tell the difference before I even start? And the answer is you can't. Literally, you can't. Um, but one question that might help resolve this is this. I think that there is some answer to this, right? There is a small way that you can figure out whether you should go down and try to investigate these memories or not. And that's something that August Stars is asking. They said, if you can't remember those memories, do you think that they'll still affect your subconscious? Like, define you without you ever being aware? And the answer is, yeah, kind of, really, actually. Because who you are as a person is an amalgamation of so many things. And many times it's our stories, it's what we've been through that sort of make up who we are today, at least how we think about the world or how we interact with people or how we see ourselves. A lot of times comes from everything that's happened to us in the past, right? And while you might not be able to remember those events, you still have something in your brain, a way that your brain has recognized patterns. Because our brain, okay, I'm just going to say this. Our brains are pattern recognizing machines, and they like to create habits, right? They like to form habits based on the world that is around them. But the problem is the brain is only trying to recognize the world around it. It doesn't know truth from false. It's just perceiving, right? Our brain doesn't instinctively know when something's a truth or a lie, right? Someone could tell you that all fish underneath their scales, if you take their scales off, underneath their scales, they've got skin, and all fish are actually gray skinned.
Interesting.
Right. Is that a truth or a lie? No, I just made that up, but it sounds true. Right?
It's actually not true. I know the color of fish skin.
There you go. So
I've used fish skin before.
Yeah. Okay. You'd good. Don't do that to fish though. I'm like,
don't skin a fish.
Don't skin a fish unless they're dead, guys. But so that's just a random thing. Your brain has no ability to pick up on whether that's true or false. It's just collecting information, and you have to discern that yourself, right? So when you're going through life, you're perceiving the world around you. And even if you don't remember the scenario that happened, it still trained your brain to how to perceive the world. So I don't remember the first, mostly, I can remember like a total of, at most, maybe 2 memories from the age of 0 to the age of 4, right? Maybe 3 or 4 memories, but it's hard to say, right? But anyhow, is it only those memories that made up my consciousness up to that situation, up to that, moment of my life? No, everything that happened to me made a difference. And that's why it's important, like, who you are and how you interact with people, because everything you do is making a difference. It's shaping people's consciousness. It's shaping the perception of those around you. It's shaping their world, even if it's something just small, right? So, you might, or any person might have problems about the way that they're thinking, and they don't know where they got that thought from. For example, I used to believe weird things about my faith that are entirely untrue. Like, my faith doesn't believe those things, but I believed them. I believed that we believed that. And I'm like, where did I get that thought? Where did I learn that? And the answer was like, I don't know. Someone told me somewhere along the line, and I believed it, and I believed all Catholics believed this thing. And then I found out later that that's totally not anything that we believe, right? And so even though I don't remember the memory of someone telling me, I know that it shaped my belief. And so it does affect. But the problem isn't whether we should try to remember those things, right? We're not faced with that problem. We're faced with the problem of what should I do? What should I perceive, right? What is truth? And so you might have something within you, like Joe was talking about, right? Talking to his therapist about different problems that he had to go revisit his childhood and re-fix. But the blessing of not knowing a memory means you don't have anyone to forgive, and you don't have anyone to blame, and you don't have anyone to associate this thinking about. You can just go into the thought and go, oh, that's the wrong thought, or that's a wrong way of looking at myself, that's the wrong perception of myself, or that's the wrong perception of this kind of people, right? You can just go in there, not associate with anybody or have to forgive anybody or blame anybody or whatever. You can just go in there and just say, oh, no, that thinking was wrong. I should think this way about it, right? So that's kind of healthy, right? And I think that's a lot of times why our brains don't try to remember everything that ever happened to us. And sometimes a traumatic experience with a particular individual or a particular time in our life can completely erase the memory for like years. Like whole years are gone out of your life. And to some degree, that's kind of like a healthy thing. You would expect the healthiest being able to remember everything and then correctly fix everything and diagnose everything and work through it. But the problem is our brains would have so much to work with and to work through that it couldn't run all the calculations, right? Our brains don't have enough brain space to think about all those things and work out all those solutions while having like a day job or going to school or whatever, right? It's just too much. It's like just literally too much to try to solve. And so instead our brain does a factory reset and just says, you know what? We'll figure out how to perceive the world around us and just take everything that has happened this last several years and just remove it so that it's not a part of our perception. Or if it is, at least let's not think about it. Let's just move on. And then work from there. Let's figure out how to be a better person from here, rather than trying to dig back and just do all the calculations and refigure out like what actually happened and why our perceptions were wrong and how to. Yeah, it's just too much, right? So to some degree, it is actually a healthy thing that our brain does when it blocks out huge portions of memory. And sometimes in life, even after blocking that out, many years later, it will resurface because our brain finally has enough space, like mental space, like ability to calculate, to start rendering those back in and go, okay, now we can start to solve these little issues. Now we're in a space where we can re-examine the past and not be overwhelmed by it. Because when our brain is overwhelmed, it actually shuts down. It's one interesting thing is like if we overwhelm ourselves with too much entertainment, our brain, our ability to experience entertainment is manually by our brain decreased. Our brain shuts down different receptors because it says, I've had too much entertainment. And even though you might not feel satisfied, your brain is like, it's an overdose of entertainment, and you will no longer experience joy from entertainment because you've had too much. And so entertainment is pointless to you now. Like our brain does that to itself. And so likewise with if there's too much pain or too much sadness involved or whatever it is, too much to calculate, it might not even have anything to do with a bad memory. It could just be an overwhelming thing where your brain goes, okay, that was overwhelming. And whenever I think about it, I'm just going to not think about it. It's going to literally shut it off, shut our memory down from that area of our life because it's overwhelming and it can't be processed. You can take a child like 2 years or younger and you can do this thing to them where you overstimulate their senses. You can give them sensory overload. And you can do this by like flashing out a bunch of lights, playing sporadic music that starts and stops, and just like lots of noises, lots of visual effects. And it's so overwhelming, their brain will literally just turn off completely and they'll just actually pass out, and they won't be able to hear, they won't be able to see, they won't be able to taste. All their receptors will be off, and they will be passed out for like minutes until they wake up, and then one by one their receptors will turn back on, and so that they can start hearing again, start seeing again. But up until then, like, they're literally, the brain just shut everything off because it was too much, right? So yeah, oh no, not the children. Yeah, don't do this to someone. If your child is being crabby, don't like try to just like sensory overload them to get them to sleep. It's not going to be worth it. It's going to traumatize them, and it's going to be only for 2 minutes or something. So it's not worth it. But anyhow, so my point of saying all that is this: it's okay. It's okay that you don't remember anything beyond, like, maybe younger than 10. In fact, to most degrees, it's incredibly normal. Obviously from ages 0 to 10, I don't have that many memories, but I do have memories, and I can recall them, right? But how many is it? Oh, geez, it's not that many. I can watch a movie, and I could be finished watching the movie, and you can ask me in like 2 hours later, tell me about the movie, and I will be able to give you very little detail, like very little. And by 2 weeks, I won't ever remember that I even watched the movie. Or if I might remember that I watched the movie, but I don't remember anything about the movie or what it was like. And that's my memory. And everybody's memory is different. Joe, for example, he'll watch a movie once, 20 years ago, and be able to quote 14 lines from it. And I'll be like, you gotta be kidding me, man. That doesn't make any sense to me. How are you literally quoting word for word? Like, can you do that with conversations? Generally, no. Most people who can do that with movies can't do that with conversations they've had with people. Isn't that weird?
Now you're making me think. Some conversations.
Some conversations.
Yeah.
Cool.
It's weird. Like when there's like an emotional tie to it.
Oh, sure. Sure.
When it was like an emotionally charged situation or something like that, and it was, or if it was one of those like defining moments, like I was talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I can't. Yep. I can barely remember those things. So I don't know. Everyone's memory is different, and we work with different brains. We work with different processing powers and speeds and so on. Like, we're not computers, so it's not an accurate representation, but you kind of get it. Some of us just don't have the literal brain space for memories the way that other people do. Some people have vivid visual memories where they'll remember every part of scenarios, whether they happened like 20 minutes ago or 20 years ago, and they can give you play-by-plays of not just a couple of things, but like tons and tons and tons and tons of things. Like, it's crazy. They'll tell you every moment of a day that they had in 1943. And it's like, how do you remember that day? He's like, oh yeah, I remember that day because on that day I remember eating lasagna at my friend's house. And it's like, how? It's just crazy. And he'll tell you everything that happened from the moment they woke up to the end of that day, and then the next day, and the next day, and the next day. They'll be able to tell you. It's like, that's crazy. So I think part of it is we are just different. And some of us don't have the talent for memory, and that's okay. We're not just any more broken because we can't remember. I'd say that it's more so just that's part of their gift, and we have our own gifts, and they have their own gifts, and our brain is operating at different frequencies. But we need all those frequencies in this world to have the best world we can have. As long as people are doing good things with their life, then the world will be good. People stop doing good things with their life, the world will stop being good. And that's what it comes down to. So, our memories important? Yeah, they're important because they might be the deciding factor of whether you decide to do good or bad. They might be the deciding factor of how you see yourself. And they might be things that you don't remember that are deep in your perception of the world for yourself, that you need looking at. But are memories the end all be all? No. You don't need to be able to remember everything to be a good person and to do good in the world, right? You don't need to remember much of anything at all to be a good person or to do good. In fact, you could have no memories and still be a good person. So, again, are they important? Sure, but are they necessary? No. And you can do plenty without them. And if you don't have them, then and you can't get them, then the answer is, well, then I guess they're not important to you. They're not important for you. I mean, not to you, but they're not important for you, because if that's where your brain is at, and you literally can't, then you literally can't, and that's not what you're supposed to do. Like, that's that. Be a good person. Be the best you can be, and work from what you got. Like, that's what you needed. I think in this life we're all given the brains that we need to perform the things we need to perform, and that's a beautiful thing. And so it seems to me that, like, if you literally can't, then that's not part of what's necessary for you to be your best self, right? That's not what's necessary for you to be your best self, and don't chase it. If you feel like it's just like some thing that's like, yeah, I don't seem to be able to grasp it, I'm not seeming to be able to find it, and you've already said you've defined to you've defined who you are, even if a majority of your childhood was nicked away from you, like, doing good now, so that's great. That's better than most people in a way. Some people have so many memories, they're bogged down and they can't be the best selves because their memories keep on stopping them from being their better selves. Like, that's a reality that a lot of people have to face, and they have to figure out how to let go of those memories and to move on. And so there are many people who are dealing with the opposite problem than you are, and they're suffering from it.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I would say in some greater degree, it's a blessing. Is it not? Anyways, that's my take on it, Anonymous. I think that that's a blessing. To not have to struggle with that's a huge blessing. So anyhow, yeah, I'm going to give it back over to Joe. Do you have anything else you want to add to that?
Yeah, I do, but you just said it.
Oh, great. Say it again. I'd like to hear it. Out of your
Okay.
mouth.
There are so many things in my life that I wish I could forget. Not being able to remember certain things can be an absolute blessing, like Ryan was just talking about. And I'm sure you have memories too, like that, even ones that you remember from, later than your childhood, right? Where you're like, oh my gosh, I wish I could just forget that. I wish I could forget that, I wish that was like what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, right? Like, I wish, I wish it was just gone. Like, I don't want to remember this because it causes me pain, or because like I'm talking about, like the different labels and all that kind of stuff. Like, I wish I could forget some of these things that happened because they were hurtful, right? And I wish I could undo what was done. But sometimes we can't, right? Sometimes we have a memory that stares us in the face all the time because we got like a scar or something from some incident or whatever, and we see it all the time, or a picture or a person even. And those things can remind us of memories that we wish we could forget. So this, in a way, like Ryan was just talking about, is a blessing. It can be a blessing to not remember. Yeah.
Yeah.
Princess, I'm so glad you showed up. You're so awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here. Princess actually, she hacked back into the system. Actually, we just never she always will just have access to the system.
That's right.
I was like, she just processed some of our topics, and it was so amazing. Like, I almost started to cry because I'm just like, all these topics came in and I'm like, I wanted to listen to what Ryan had to say, and I'm processing topics, and I processed one and Princess processed like three, like, while I was doing it, and she just like snuck in there. It was so great. I was so I was so happy. So thank you, Princess, and thank you for your input on this topic. I saw some of the things you posted in the chat, and she's also dealt with some things to dealing with memories from early childhood and having to undo and change the narrative of those memories so that then she can be able to move forward in a better way. And those are things that, my therapist is working with me on as well. And so like for you to not be able to remember, as long as there's nothing going on that's causing some kind of a problem or some kind of catch in your life, and man, just live.
Yeah.
Just live.
Mm-hmm.
Be you. Be you. And from what you said in your topic, Anonymous, you've defined who you are. And I think that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still trying to figure it out. I'm trying to refigure it out actually now.
Mm.
I defined who I was, and then I got into a relationship and I redefined who I was based on the marriage, and now I'm not in that marriage anymore. And so now I'm trying to figure out who I was before so I can try and figure out where I'm supposed to go from here. Right? And so like
Mm.
sometimes defining ourselves can be this, like it's not always a static thing. It's a
Hi.
dynamic thing.
Oh,
Right.
you're right. It's not always about me, huh?
Yeah, that's right. It is always about you, Ryan.
No. Come on.
It is. I
Oh, okay.
promise.
All right.
Man, oh man, when I wake up, it's all about you.
Good. Good. Keep it that way. Don't.
Right on. That's all. That's all.
Yeah, no,
Thank you.
that's
Thank you,
great.
Anonymous.
I guess to share just a little bit about my personal experiences, I have a blessing, which I count fully as a blessing. And that is, I will literally have a day, and like 20 things will go wrong in it, and then I'll like, this used to happen when I did inspections. So job where I'd go around, take pictures of houses. I'd get home at the end of the day, and my brother was like, "How did it go?" And I'd be like, "Oh, it's good." And he'd be like, "Well, what happened? How come it took so long to get there? Or how come you were late on this, whatever?" And I'd be like, I don't know. I don't remember. Like I remember today there were definitely things that got in the way of me doing what I was trying to do, but I don't remember like what they were. Right? So that's my memory. My memory is weird because if it's just like pointless bad stuff that I don't have control over, right? My brain will just immediately get rid of it. Like my brain will not care at all. And it will just say, "Nah, you don't remember like the 20 bad things that happened to you today." So I consider that a blessing because I don't get sucked in. At the end of the day, some people come home and they're like, "Oh, this happened to me. I was caught in traffic." And I'm like, "Okay, I don't even remember the traffic." "Okay, you were caught in traffic, and then there was this guy who rear-ended the person in front of him, and then you got stuck there for like all day. And then a train came by and stopped you, so you had to wait for that. And then, like, you got to this house and this one person yelled at you, or their dog was outside barking, and you didn't know if you could go in." It's like people come up with everything. They'll remember all the bad stuff that happened throughout the day, and they don't remember any of the good things. And I consider that awful. I'm like, I am so glad I'm not that person. I come home and I'm like, yeah, some of that stuff probably happened to me. I don't know. I just take that stuff and I say, it doesn't matter. I don't care. I'm moving on, right? And so, am I saying like that's better? No, I say that's better for me, because that's my conundrum, my situation, and for me, I find that to be a great blessing because I don't sweat the small stuff, because my brain doesn't even let me sweat this small stuff. It doesn't care.
That's good.
Yeah, it's a blessing. It's a huge
It's a
blessing.
good feature you have.
Yeah, it's a good feature. And part of that is programming.
I don't
Part of
have that feature.
That's fair. Part of that is programming. When I was little, my brain was programmed to not sweat the small stuff. To like, if it's a bad thing, that's not going to make you happy, so don't think about it. Sort of stuff, right? And so that kind of seems unhealthy, but to some degree, it became a blessing, right? So I don't know if that's where you're at. Then you're in company with a couple of us. I know um, um, there are other people in this chat, like Nyansai, who has a similar scenario with her memory. So, um, yeah, you're in good company, I suppose. But just recognize that whatever your memory is, it can be your blessing, even if it's not something that's as good as others, right? So anyhow, yeah, I just wanted to share that. I also wanted to say memories are weird. Just one last thing. Memories are super weird. I have a memory from when, like, before I was born, of in a house that I never was in, but my mom was in. So it was like I could see from her eyes. So that's weird. That doesn't make any sense. But I do have a memory from basically being actually taller than an infant and looking around and looking down as I was walking up a ramp in a house that I've never been in because my mom moved out of the house before I was born, but I was in her womb while we were in it. So that's weird. Memories are weird, okay? So I can't explain that. I don't even want to try to attempt or tell you that that is 100% fact, but that is an actual memory that I have, and I don't know why. So there you go. Memories are weird.
Memories are weird.
Memories are weird. That's all I got to say about that. I don't want to go too deep
I
into
lost
that,
the deja vu memories.
Oh, deja vu. Yeah, lots
I
of
have
deja
more
vu.
and more of them. Like the more times I turn 29,
Yeah.
like the older I get, yeah.
So wow,
Like
I
I
turned
have
that 29
more and more
before.
of these
Weird.
deja vu moments. Like it's weird. Like where
Mm.
like this happened, this I dreamt this. Like I can see the future. It's just I never know which dreams are actually predicting something, right? They just happen, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, I dreamt that. I remember dreaming that,
Yeah, that's weird.
you know?
Yeah.
And so, yeah. But then there's Vuja Day,
What's that like?
which is not deja vu. It's
Yeah.
Vuja Day, which is the feeling that you get when you know you've never experienced something like that before.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I have a lot of those, I think.
Yeah, I've never experienced anything like this before in my life. This
Mm-hmm.
Vuja Day. Yes.
Yeah, I have no idea what to do. Uh, Puja Day. That's great. So yeah, thank you so much, Anonymous, for this topic. It was a great one, and I hope that it was satisfactory and sufficient. But yeah, so we luckily, thanks to Princess and to you guys, we've got more topics we can do.
Mm-hmm. And we got
So
an urgent one.
we've got an urgent one, which is helpful. Thank you. This is from another Anonymous. If you don't mind me just jumping right into the next one. I hope you guys don't.
I mind, but
You
they
mind?
don't, so that's okay.
Okay. This is titled Work Burnout. You mind? Okay, Joe, do you want me to slow down?
No, you're good.
We can slow down, buddy.
We're already here now.
Okay. Well, I can take it back now, y'all.
Take it back
steps.
now, yeah.
I can take it 2 steps back. I could slide to the right.
One hop, one hop.
Mm-hmm. I could clap 32 times in a row. Sorry, I
32
get
times.
emotional over that part of the song.
Everybody clap
It's
your
way too
hands.
many.
Is it 32?
Yeah.
You counted them.
Yeah.
I figured you counted them.
Anyways, I'm sorry.
We're gonna get a copyright strike now.
Yeah, sorry about that, YouTube. Undo the 32 claps. So anyways, I am ready to go on this. So I'm gonna put the topic on the screen for you guys to enjoy and read it as I read it. So this is from Anonymous. It's titled Work Burnout, and it reads as follows. Today was a tough work day. I am on a project under someone else's group, but I've been really burnt out working on it. I mentioned it to the manager of the project about that, but they got upset about the project and then got upset at me when I got upset about it. Right? They told me not to cry. They told me not to cry when that's not in my control. Now all I want to do is avoid them until a meeting about the project later this week. Oh, hopefully I read that right. Yeah. Jeez. Sorry to hear that, Anonymous. I'll tell you, like, the workplace can be The workplace can be
Brutal.
brutal. Thank you. That's the word I was looking for. The workplace can be brutal.
Mm,
It
it
can
can be
be
brutal.
a heck of an emotional battle. Um, don't
Mhm.
don't feel like it's don't feel like you're the only one that's ever cried at a job, because that happens probably every single day on this planet.
Mhm.
Someone cries at some
Mhm.
job because,
I cry at my
geez,
job fairly frequently.
well, there you go. It's your job to cry. Sorry, no, it's not.
You know, it's
Kind of
funny
it.
because that's what Jesse told me.
That's that's great.
I said I felt bad because I'm like, man, I feel bad because I feel like, like we're not paying me to cry. And he's like, yes, we are. We're paying you to cry.
Yeah, we're paying you to cry. That's
Mm-hmm.
right. You got to get those emotions
So
out, man.
cry. Mm-hmm. Cry.
Yeah, cry, man. Yeah, I mean, yeah, jobs can be tough. And I understand, like, everyone wants to bring forth a professional level, um, and pretend they're someone they're not while they're at the workplace. And personally, I'm not a big fan of that, but I understand it. I understand it, and I think it does us well to have some form of um, barrier between us and our personal lives and our work life, so that we don't hurt ourselves. Right? We do need some lines to not be crossed, but at the same time, um, my point is, it, it's okay to be real. And you shouldn't be punished for being real at your job. So, anyways, I just wanted to say that, and I feel for you, and I'm so sorry that you're having a tough work day, and I hope that those days don't continue, and that your work days can be full of joy and better times soon. And I especially hope that this relational problem between you and your boss can get resolved quickly and in a way that is that builds both of you up. That maybe you might find yourself coming out of this with a closer friend, even though right now at this time you're probably like, screw that person, I don't ever want to be a close friend to that kind of person. But you might come out
Mhm.
of this with a different thinking. I don't know. I don't know where you're at. I don't know this person. I don't know you, Anonymous, but, or maybe I do, but I don't. It doesn't give me a name, it just says Anonymous. So, um, yeah, that's rough. That's rough.
Mhm.
I feel you.
Mhm.
I've definitely had my experiences with relationships at work, and projects doing terrible things. So I'm gonna give it over to Joe. He has a long work record as well, and has definitely had
A
to deal with people in
long
his time.
work
Yeah,
record.
he spent 29 for a long
Long
time.
work record. I've been working with crazy people
That's
for a
right.
long time.
That's right.
Lots of different, various crazy people,
Yeah.
all different jobs that I've had.
Oh, for sure.
Craziness. And there were good people too. You kind of you get thrown into a workplace. And Anonymous, thank you so much for the topic. And I'm so sorry that this is happening. This is a stressful time. And especially like so you're upset about the project, your manager's upset about the project, and then they're upset at you for being upset at the project when they're also upset about the project. So
Mm-hmm.
like it's just a big ball of upsetness, which is tough because and not only that, but like I would sit there, I take a step back from this situation, I look at it and I'm like, how dare that manager be upset at you for being upset about the same thing they're upset about? They're upset about it too. They have no grounds to be upset with you for feeling the same way they feel, right?
Yeah.
Because they feel the same way. Like I can't like if I do something, I can't be mad at somebody else for doing the same thing. Now we do this as humans all the
Oh yeah,
time.
all the time.
We do something and we think it's fine, but then somebody else does it and then we're mad at them for it, right? Like this happens. I've been that person before. The only person here who's not been that person probably is Ryan.
Only because I'm perfect, but that's like besides the point. I'm just kidding. No, I'm
I
not.
know. I know.
I
See,
am
that's
not
the
that.
thing. And oh yeah, by the way, there you go.
I
You
fixed
changed the
it.
topic. Good
Thanks.
job.
Thanks.
Good job.
Thank you.
Good job.
Thank you both.
hmm So, so first of all, logically in your head. Now, I don't know how much this helps, but sometimes when I'm having an emotional response for something, what I have to do is kind of logic myself through it a little bit and try to think to myself, wait a second, this is just silly. And to me, in my mind, it's silly for your manager to be upset with you for being upset about the same thing they're upset about. They're upset about the project. You're upset about the project. Now they're upset with you about being upset about the project. And to me, it's the project that's the problem, right? The project is making people upset. And I don't know what's going on in the project. I don't know, I don't know any of the details. And like I know there are all kinds of various things in various different professions and various different problems in every project or scenario that happens that can just be really frustrating. And I am sorry. So, it's interesting. There are a couple instances, I'll tell you a couple stories and a couple experiences that I had of situations like this where I've dealt with very upset superiors. And what you find is the next day, usually things are better. Or maybe it might take a week and maybe things are better. I can remember one time we were really stressed out. I worked at a I worked at a band instrument store, a place that sold and rented band instruments. And rental season, the beginning of the school year, was always super busy. It was crazy. All kinds of students coming in to rent instruments for the school year. And excuse me, it was just nuts. And so it was high stress, high tension, just crazy all the time. Like we're trying to keep track of stuff. And I remember my manager just flipping out one day, and we were all kind of standing in the back room. We're trying to figure out this scenario, and he was just so mad. He threw his coffee cup across the room. Now it was closed. He had a coffee cup that had a top on it, right? And it was closed. It was like one of those with a lid, No, it did not stay that way. In fact, it came open as soon as he threw it.
That didn't last long. It should have label on there, not to be thrown. Do not throw. Yeah. Not for children under the age of you. I'm sorry. Sorry. Go on.
Yep. Anyway, he was so mad. He threw this coffee cup. And I was standing right in the line of fire, right? And he didn't hit me with the cup, but it opened as soon as he threw it. And hot coffee just all over my shirt and my pants and everything, right? And now, luckily, I was wearing beige, mostly.
Oh, gosh. Oh, gosh.
But it was this explosive moment, and everybody was stressed. Everybody was angry. Everybody was dealing with this thing, and he just got mad and threw it, and I kind of got the brunt of it, right? Where I just got the coffee on me. Now, that incident actually kind of lightened the mood lately. Because I just kind of stood there in shock, like, what? Like, what just happened? And I've got coffee on me. And then he apologized. He was like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize the lid was going to come off of there. I'm so sorry. And I'm like, dude, it's okay. Are you okay? Like, are you going to make it? And he's like, yeah, I'm sorry. I need to take a break. And so he, goes, takes a break, whatever. And so, but we have that incident, and still I'll go back. I haven't worked at that store in 14 years. That particular location, I haven't worked for this company in 14 years. I haven't worked for that store in 20 years. Which is crazy because I'm 29 years old.
Yeah, wow. Wow. Child labor laws didn't get you, huh?
Holy cow, man. Not back then. Back in the day, we didn't have child labor laws. We had child labor.
That's it. And that was the law. No, I'm just kidding.
That was the law, man. But anyway, so I'll go in there and I'll see him because he still works there. And we still talk about that incident. Like he's still, he'll bring it up. Remember that time? And I'm like, yeah, I'll never forget that, man. It was, like it was crazy. Because then there was another time later on in my working career, I went to work at a car wash because jobs were scarce and that's what was available. And so I went and worked at a car wash. And I remember the owner of the car wash had this Corvette. And it was always like super detailed and nice. And he had he owned this car wash to keep his cars clean, basically, like, and to make money, obviously. And it was very interesting because his parents would also come through, and they were older and retired and stuff like that. And they'd come in and bring their car, and we were taught to know who his parents were so that we could give them the free car wash because they just, they were grandfathered in, to getting free car washes. And so we had to know who they were. And the owner comes through and he had his Corvette and he brought it through and he wanted the nicest wash, obviously, right? And he had some bugs on his front and everything, and I scrubbed extra to get bugs off the front and did all this kind of stuff and did a little bit extra and all this kind of stuff to try and get his car clean and then send him through the wash. And he came whipping back around, boom, just like comes flying back around to the entrance of the car wash, gets out of his Corvette, jumps up, starts screaming at my face, shoves me into the wall, throws the wash broom at me, and he's like, look at this effing blah, blah, blah. And he's like swearing and cussing and like, look, like there's still bugs on the front of my car. Like he's just freaking out, like physically violent, freaking out and yelling at me. And I had done the best I could. And he's like, that's not how you do it. And then he grabbed the wash broom from me and he put the stuff on there and he's like scrubbing and scrubbing and scrubbing and he's not getting them off either, which is kind of funny. But he's like, so, and then he goes back through and then like the next, like 2 cars behind him having this tirade were his parents. So they saw the whole thing. And I remember I was just like blown away by this incident. I'm like, holy cow, like this guy just shoved me into a brick wall and threw this broom at me and then grabbed it from me and like was yelling this whole time. And then I'm like shaking, like trembling, like, oh my gosh, like what just happened? Like I'm just total hijacked, right? And he goes and he pushes the button and gets in his car and rides through the wash, and whatever. And then the next car comes through and the customer's just like, they're like deer in headlights, like, oh my gosh, like, okay, I just want a regular car wash. Are you okay, sir? Like, I'm like, yeah, okay, there's no problem. And then his parents come through and I'm talking to his parents and they were the last people in line, and I'm just like, is he okay? Is he under a lot of stress? I'm like asking him, his parents, like, I mean, I feel really bad. If he's responding like that, he must be like dealing with some pretty serious hard times. Like, I'm concerned about him. And so apparently, like, then his mom went and talked to the owner's mom, talked to him. And so he came and apologized to me because his mom told him to. But anyway, these incidents, they're crazy ridiculous. When you're dealing with emotions at work and when you're dealing with a coworker who's emotional, or you're dealing with a manager or somebody who's your boss who's emotional, that's a tough situation. And then when you're all sharing in that same frustration, that it can make for such a hard time in that moment. But almost every time, and I've had more incidents that were high stress. I mean, those two stand out as like big, like big things happened, right? It was crazy. But um I've had many other incidents at many other jobs where, there's been frustrations and, the managers have been mad and, it just kind of gets to be this, oh my gosh, like what is going on? Generally speaking, the next day is not nearly as bad. The next day can be a day for reparation. The next day can be a day for apology. It can be a day for forgiveness. It can be a day for, okay, now we're clear-headed. I'm sorry, and I, generally speaking, I will always offer the apology first. And I know sometimes that's hard to do. But I will generally be the first to say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for the way that I handled that. I'm sorry that, what if I had done something that made you upset, I'm really, really sorry. And, I don't want this to continue. I want to be able to get through this. Can we try and work together? Can we mend this, right? And most of the time, what's going to happen is they will also apologize in return. Sometimes they won't, and that's a little stinging moment. Or they'll say something like, well, I'm sorry you got frustrated, which isn't a real apology. I'm sorry you got mad. I'm sorry you got hurt feelings. That's not a real apology.
Yeah.
That's kind of a jerkish move, actually, in my book, but whatever. But what can happen, even if you can extend the olive branch and just humble yourself, it's okay. It's okay to humble yourself. It's okay to apologize. So many people, it's so hard for them to apologize. I have nothing to apologize for. Blah, 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 blah. Like, well, okay, that's great. But you know what? Even if I'm totally in the right, I will still apologize because I might have hurt their feelings. I'll say, man, I'm sorry I hurt your feelings. I did not intend to do that. I remember going through this scenario with one of my relatives where they were like, well, I didn't do anything wrong. Why should I have to apologize? I'm like, so you didn't mean to hurt their feelings, right? And they're like, yeah. Okay. But their feelings got hurt by you. Yeah, but it wasn't my fault. I didn't do anything wrong. Okay. But you still hurt their feelings. Yeah, but I didn't mean to. Okay. So how hard is it when you didn't mean to hurt their feelings to apologize for giving them the wrong idea? Because you didn't mean to. How hard is it to say, man, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that. I didn't mean to hurt your feelings. I'm sorry. We get so caught up in being right that we don't want to apologize. And I'm not saying this is you, Anonymous. I'm not saying that you have trouble with this. I'm just saying what I've experienced in the world. But if you can be the first one to apologize, it shows how much bigger of a person you are. In many ways, it does. If you can be the first person to humble yourself and be like, hey, I'm sorry for what I contributed to this problem. Can we work together to move forward? Then that can smooth things over and they will have respect for you. Or maybe they won't. And if they don't, they're not worth your time anyway, right? I'm sorry. But I hope I'm making sense. But you can try to avoid them if you want. And if you can avoid them, that's great. Some workplaces you can do that. You can avoid the person that you're trying to avoid. Some places they're unavoidable. I've worked in both situations where I can avoid the person that's being frustrating to me, and then other places where I cannot, where I absolutely have to interact with them in order to get the job done. And so if you have to, it's okay. If you don't have to, great. But just understand, this moment happened. It'll give you a memory, a story, something to think about, something to talk about in the future. And it's going to be okay. Because at the end of this project, it's over. This project will come to an end. As frustrating as it is, it will come to an end. And I don't know how long it is. I don't know how long you have to do it. But it is not a permanent situation. And more than likely, the frustrations tomorrow are going to feel better. You know, it's going to be smoothed out to some degree. And yeah, so, okay. I see in the chat, Princess says, what if it isn't a scenario in which an apology makes sense? Then don't apologize. If it doesn't make sense to apologize, then maybe you don't have to apologize. You know,
One thing I could say is not that it's like you've done anything wrong, but if you could always say, I'm sorry I got worked up. Sorry I got so worked up. And really that's an apology to yourself, to the other person's face. Right? And sometimes we need to do that. Because what it does is, like Joe said, sometimes you really just want to humble yourself. Because when you humble yourself, you allow yourself to change. If you are stuck in a position where you are unhumble, that means you're prideful and you are unable to change and you are set in your ways and unable to move forward with an experience, right? And so you can take this awful experience, right, that you didn't deserve. It's not like you did anything intentionally wrong here. You just kind of are caught up in this scenario and got yelled at or whatever, right? And so, sorry, I didn't mean to take it from you. Joe, did you have more you wanted to say?
Nope.
Okay, so I'll just continue.
Yeah.
Cool.
You're good.
So, yeah, you just kind of got caught up in it. But you can apologize to yourself that, honestly speaking, maybe I shouldn't have been that caught up in it. Yeah, they wronged me, but how did I respond to that wrong? Yeah, they wronged me, but did my actions accidentally, I got upset about it in the first place. Did that cause other people to get more worked up? Right? And that's a true thing you have to juggle and reconcile with, because it's often the case. When you get worked up about something, you're going to cause the people around you to get worked up too. And I don't mean to point the finger at you and say you're a bad person. Of course not.
Well, it might be the manager. If the manager was upset about the project and then
Yeah, exactly.
Anonymous was upset by,
By
like
the
everybody's
right, and
kind of upset about it.
that's what it's that's what is written here. The manager was upset, and they got upset in response, and that's a very normal reaction. That's human. And then they got more upset because you got upset, right? And so there's this sense of like, did I control myself perfectly well? No. Is that okay? Sure. But can I still at least apologize for that, humble myself, and try to use this poor experience to make it to grow, right? And you can't grow from an experience unless you humble yourself. Generally speaking, you have to recognize that there's room to grow in order for you to grow. And so I would take this scenario and try to learn how to grow from it, is what I would do. And one of the things is recognizing that we aren't perfect masters of our emotion or how we let them out, right? And so to say to myself is like, you know what? There's to some degree responsibility in that I could have handled myself better. And so I can go to this person's face and say, hey, I'm sorry I didn't handle myself better. What that does is it opens the scenario up for them to humble themselves, right? What you're doing is you're giving them the opportunity to follow you in your footsteps. Because when you approach someone, you humble yourself and you say, hey, look, like, I didn't go perfectly. Let's be honest, I didn't go perfectly. And then you say, like, hey, I wasn't perfect in that scenario. It opens up the door to allow them to set down their pride and go, you know what? I can meet this person where they're at. And I'll say the same thing. Yeah, I didn't react perfectly either. And so now you've taken a scenario where you're both like, I just so uncomfortable. I don't even want to approach them. I just want to avoid them at all costs. And you open up the door to at least the possibility of them getting on the same page length or wavelength/page, getting on this same page length with you, as you. That's a long.
I love
page.
those extra long,
really
pages,
long pages. Yeah. And responding to your humility with humility, and then what that will do is open up the option for both of you to grow through the experience. Now the truth is, what might happen is you apologize and they just are prideful right through and don't show and don't, basically they pretend, even though they know in their heart, or maybe they're just completely, they can't tell at all. I mean, that's possible. They can't imagine it, that they were wrong. But maybe they don't admit that they were wrong at all, right? Maybe they don't admit that they didn't handle themselves perfectly, right? So you can go up and say, hey, I'm sorry I didn't handle myself perfectly back there. Sorry I sort of had got upset. I'm sorry I got upset about that. And then let's say they do the worst option possible, and then they're just like, yeah, you really did, and then they move on. Well, don't internalize that. Just recognize right now that that's a possibility, so that when that happens, if it happens, it probably won't, but if that happens, you already know what that feels like, and you know that you don't have to feel that. You already know that that's an option. Don't be mad at them, because clearly they have some kind of mental issues if that's how they respond, right? Someone in their right mind, right? If given this scenario, if they're in their right mind, they're going to respond with humility and admit their own faults, right? But sometimes people need that little push, that little encouragement, and that encouragement is not one that goes like, yeah, let's do this, let's apologize. It comes in the form of humility. It approaches them in a humble state, and it encourages them to be humble too, to meet them down there where they're at, where humility is at, so that they can then grow from that spot. But if they don't respond that way, then you have no right or reason to be upset at them, because clearly they aren't in their right mind, right? Right now, they're not functioning at 100%. So don't be mad at them. Like, don't, basically what I'm saying, you can be mad at them, I get it, that's fine, but don't internalize it. Don't pretend that has anything to do with you, and don't let that burn you inside. Don't let that be a wound. Just take that as and be like, okay, yeah, have compassion and go, okay, yeah, that person, that's where they're at in their life. I pray that they'll get better at this. I pray that they'll find humility. But right now, I did my part, and now I can move on. And at that point, you might be able to recognize that this is a toxic person and it's not worth being around them. Or you might recognize this is an opportunity for me to help this person change. But you have to figure out that part. Like, I'm not advising you in either direction, and I think probably flee is a better answer than try to get involved, because it's not easy to change a person. Let's
Hmm.
just say that.
Well,
It's,
and
I
if they're
mean,
toxic, I mean,
yeah,
we've all dealt with people who are toxic,
yeah,
right?
for sure.
And that it it never bodes well,
Mm-mm, nah.
right?
Yeah, generally speaking, if they're decidedly toxic, then they're decidedly
Hmm.
toxic. That's just how it is.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
So that's important to be said. So anyhow, that's honestly my best advice is right along with what Joe was saying. Um, you know, be humble. You can apologize for not carrying yourself perfectly. And I know that again that could be hard, and it might feel unjustified because it's you know you want perfect justice. Well, this world doesn't have any justice to offer you in that terms. Because if this world was perfectly just, everyone has to take responsibility for everything, and everyone's not doing that. But what you can do
Hmm.
is try to take responsibility for yourself, and you can see where that goes. So don't expect justice, but at least be just yourself. And through that, you might inspire other people to be just and hold themselves accountable. And that's how we get to a world that is just. But at this point, you I mean, just assume unjusticeness, because that's just the world we live in. We've lived in this world since human was conceived, and that's where that's the state of the world has always been in, and it probably always will be. But that's okay. That's why you come in, and you be that light that tears through that darkness, and you be outside the norm, and be the person willing to change things. And that's so I'm really happy you asked that, Princess, and I think that gets us down the road. And I guess if to some degree there really is no apology to be made, then that's okay. Find other
Hmm.
ways to humble yourself in the scenario and encourage the humility of the other person, because that's what's needed to make the change. I would say you want to take this scenario and, like I said, make it a scenario that grows you and grows the other people around you.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, Joe and we both have stories of um, learning to be better with people in the heat and the fire of the moment. Because,
Hmm.
like, we had to
That's hard.
yeah, it's hard. We had to go through, I mean, I had my bullies, he's had his bullies. We both did inspections, and that's a job where we have to walk up to properties and take pictures of people's houses, and the people are going under foreclosures, right? They're losing their houses to the bank. The
Hmm.
last thing they want to see is someone coming up that works for the bank taking pictures of their houses, right? And they come out in a storm of anger.
Hmm.
You
You get beat up by their words.
you get beat up by their words, and you either
Sometimes
decide
you
to
get bitten by their dogs.
that's right. Yep, that's happened to me. You either decide to burn in that fire with them, or use that fire to light up their life. And that's the game changer. I'm going to say that again, cuz that's a unique way of looking at it, and I think that it's important and crucial. When someone's world is on fire, and they're making it an angry scenario, their world's on fire and they bring it to you and they're yelling at you. You can either burn in the fire with them. You can either decide, you know what? You want to fight? Let's do this. You can decide, okay, you want to batter me? I'll take it in. Or, and you can get burned. Or you can use that fire to be a light source. And how do you do that? A lot of times it's just by listening,
Hmm.
being calm and patient with them,
Hmm. And that's
understanding
hard
them.
to do. That's hard to do.
Mm-hmm.
And it
Yeah,
takes
it
practice.
takes practice. And that's how you learn. You learn in the fire, right? You're
Hmm.
gonna be a firefighter, right? You gotta practice. That's why they set houses on fire for practice, right? Literally. So
And for fun.
and for fun, but Yeah, I mean, you're not a firefighter not for fun, right? But anyways, um, yeah, you go through these scenarios that are set ablaze. Emotions are just crazy fired up and hot and terrible and burning, and you enter into those, and by entering into those and coming out alive, you learn how to deal with them better. And so what I would say the takeaway from this for you is you just survived a fire. Look at that, recount what you can, and learn how to navigate that better next time. Because both Joe and I, again, this is not to brag, it's just our experiences. Both Joe and I learned how to deal with people who are coming out of their houses screaming and threatening and like with guns or bats or whatever, weapons, like actual weapons, right? Coming out of their house screaming, and we both were able to get to a position where we encounter these people where they're at, and by the end of them by the end of that encounter, they're hugging us and crying and saying, "Oh, you're such a blessing," right?
Mm-hmm.
Because we decided to be a blessing. We came into that moment going, the only way out is to be a blessing. Because it's either that or I die here in the fire with them. It's either that or I get burned. You know? And so both Joe and I had to experience that. We lived through that, and we learned how to deal with people because we dealt with people enough in their fire to start to learn how to save people from their own fire. And that's an amazing trick. When you can see someone burning in their fire and reach out and take them out of their own fire. Take them out of the house that's burning, that they set on fire, and they didn't, or maybe they didn't set their own house on fire. Someone else set their house on fire, and they're just dealing with the emotional aftermath. And you reach in there, and you jump into that fire, and you save them. Like, that's a real thing, and you don't get good at that unless you encounter enough fires. So,
and the fires are never comfortable.
And the fires are never comfortable.
Unfortunately.
And they aren't all the same. They all come in, they all come in different shapes, all different sizes.
And they don't get to a point where they all end in hugs.
No, they don't. They don't all get
Those are still rare.
Those are rare. Those are rare. Yeah. But you got to keep on going through them to find eventually the ones that you pull out, right? That you got to keep on going into those moments to find that moment that you were made for. That you are the blessing, which helps them see the light in the fire. Rather than getting caught up in the heat of it and dying, right? Like that's an amazing trick. And that's something everyone here is capable of. So I hope you look at this scenario, Anonymous, and you recognize that this is one of those. It's one of those that will help train you to be better and better and better. And where you are right now, maybe that's your starting point. Maybe this is your midway point, or maybe you're real close. I don't know. But when other people are on fire, in a bad way, not like, oh, I'm on fire, yeah, you know, but when people are like literally on fire, like their lives are on fire, and literally, you know, the comic, this is fine, and their whole house is burning down, yeah. Yeah, you gotta encounter those people, and you just encountered one, so it's not your fault. It's not your fault that you got burned. You kind of have to get burned a few times, maybe 100 times, maybe 1,000 times, before you find yourself capable of dealing with the fires and helping other people put them out. And I think that when you come with the notion of recognizing this truth, that you can be the blessing, it helps a ton, because now you have a direction for whenever you experience this again going forward. Whenever you experience this again going forward, your brain will trigger this thought like, oh, 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 this is one of those fires. This is one of those moments. How do I be a blessing to this person? How do I get this person out of their fire? Because that's huge. Just knowing that you can, knowing that that might be a possibility, changes everything about the way that you react. Because then you no longer are taking the pressure upon yourself going and letting it break you down to a point where you start maybe even crying, right? Instead, your brain is trying to navigate and going, hold on, I'm not getting caught up in this emotion because I'm trying to be the blessing here. And your brain goes a different path and it doesn't get burned. And so because you decide to not take the path that's on fire, you take a different path, right? So that's what I hope I've planted something in your brain that helps you navigate these better in the future. And not saying that what you've done is terrible, because what I'm saying is what you've done is necessary for the journey. What you've already done is necessary for the journey. It isn't a bad response. It's just a response that's necessary for the journey to keep on going. And I hope that you do. I hope that you do keep on going. So yeah. That's what I got. And I'm gonna give it over to Joe. Joe, did you have anything else you want to add?
No, you definitely had some reminiscing moments of the inspections field. I forgot about all the conflicts that happened
Oh yeah.
in that line of work. It was pretty crazy, but yeah,
You had it
anonymous.
worse than I did. I mean, but because your area was tougher.
Maybe, I don't know. I think, well, and I did it for longer too,
Yeah, well, that's actually true
but
as well. Yeah, you did it for several more years
but
than I did.
either way, I mean, you know, what Ryan is saying is so spot on. And this is, this isn't going to happen overnight. This isn't a change that's going to happen overnight. But the more you handle situations like this, and I'm not saying you handled this poorly. You handled
Right.
it the best you could.
Yeah.
We get thrown into these situations and we just respond. We don't have any time to think
Yeah.
a lot of times.
Mm-hmm.
We just respond. And so this is one of those moments that was a testing moment. And I love where Ryan was getting with this. This can grow you.
Yeah.
This moment, this thing that happened, it's hard. But it's that exercise of, okay, I've been through this really tough thing. All right. I'm still here. I've survived. What next? And sometimes it doesn't happen all at once. I'm still wrestling, in a lot of ways, going through therapy, doing all kinds of stuff because of the marriage and divorce and all the stuff that I recently went through. It doesn't always happen right away. We have to put things together in our head sometimes. But this is one of those moments that can build you and can help you grow. And I love that Ryan took that direction because it's so true.
Mm-hmm.
You'll look
True.
back as hopefully you don't have to handle lots of incidents like this.
Yeah, I would
I
not hope that for
sure
anybody.
do hope, Anonymous, that this isn't a normal occurrence in your workplace. If it is, then it sometimes you have to go looking for other work.
That's
This was a
true.
normal occurrence in the inspections world, and that's why, I don't think anybody could do that job forever. It
Mm.
just gets too crazy. But the thing is that you learn, like Ryan was talking about, you learn how to handle yourself by going through those moments. You get thrown into those incidents where you react and you respond and it's like, oh, this hurts and this is painful, and maybe you react emotionally and cry, and that's okay too.
Mm-hmm. And it's okay to react that way too when you're being the blessing,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's okay to
Absolutely.
be like it caught up in an emotion. You don't have to be
Mm-hmm.
stoic without emotion or whatever to be the blessing. You can respond with emotion and be a blessing.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Exactly.
just it's just being able to and noticing that you can be and
Mm-hmm.
figuring out how to do that. But anyhow, yeah, sorry.
But here's the other thing. You may not ever know how much of a blessing you were to your manager today.
Mm.
By having this happen,
Mm-hmm.
by going through this experience, it was a painful experience. You had a reaction, right? Hey, you got upset. Your manager got upset. There were tears involved. That's okay. You may have planted a seed of growth for your manager as well as yourself
Yes. Very true.
because both of you lived through this experience. And we grow through those painful moments a lot more than we grow through the times when everything's easy
Mm-hmm.
and great and whatever. I have to remind myself of that
Mm. Mm-hmm.
because that like seriously, there is truth in the saying what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Even if you're left, a broken mess for a while and it hurts for a while, you will gain strength, maybe in ways that you have no idea. You might gain mental strength from a physical wound. You might gain physical strength from a mental wound. The strength might not match where the wound is, but through it you can grow. And I will pray for you. And I hope if you're a praying person, you can
Maybe
pray
say,
for your manager,
oh,
pray for
that
this
was me.
situation. What's that?
Sorry, I clicked on. I accidentally put myself up super big.
That's better.
I'm sorry. Go on as you were.
um, if you can surround this situation with some prayer, that would be great. If you're a praying type of person, I find that can bring ease, it can bring you comfort, and who knows? But just one thing I want you to know, Anonymous, is that this incident happened and it's over. You can put it in the past. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. None of us ever do.
Mm-hmm.
But at least you don't have to go through that same exact thing again. There might be similar incidents, but you can look back on that one and be like, well, it's not quite the same as that one. And if there's a way you can avoid them, that's okay too. You don't have to go running back in all rammy and be like, hey, I need to talk to you about this. No, you don't have to. It's okay. It's okay to keep distance. Totally fine. But anyway, I don't know. That's what I got.
Fantastic. Well,
Hmm.
yeah. Anonymous, I hope that was helpful. And everybody else who attended, I hope that something we've talked about today was helpful as well. And it's actually like 28 minutes past our starting time here, or at least what
Our
20?
starting time?
Yeah, our
It's
starting time.
2 hours and 28 minutes past our
Yeah,
starting time. It's 28
that's
minutes
what I'm.
past our normal ending time.
You know what? That's a better way to say it. So that's what I meant. Um,
Ryan, you're so amazing
thanks, you too. I love you,
and
buddy.
lovely and beautiful. You should put yourself on full screen the whole time.
Yeah.
Do it.
There you go, guys. That's the bottom of my head and the top of my head. My nose is missing.
Perfect. Oh, and look at me. I'm like tiny stretching in the corner.
There you go. That's you. Look at you. Aw, he's so cute. Okay, anyways. There's Joe. That's the man of the show. You know what? Maybe, hold on, check this out. Maybe that's how the show should go, huh? Just
like this?
Yeah.
No.
You see that one? Pretty attractive. No. Okay, fine. Well, anyways, we're gonna go back to normal mode and close the show down. So thank you guys so much for being here on our Don't Worry Wednesday show. Thank you for everybody who watches afterwards, even if it's 10 years from now. And thank you to everyone who's lurking or in the chat, especially the chat people. You guys are super awesome. Thanks for commenting and also giving us things to talk about. And thank you so much for submitting topics. Thank you, Princess, for submitting some topics for us as well. That was super helpful.
Yes, thank you for processing. Thank you for coming in.
Cool.
And it was so great to see you.
Thanks to our new mods for helping put down links and filter in chat if needed and all that kind of stuff. We love you guys. And we hope to see you next Don't Worry Wednesday. That's on Wednesday, every Wednesday. And, well, except for, you know what, let's not get into too many, we don't have to get too technical here. I was going to say, except for, like, Wednesdays before Don't Worry Wednesday started. But that's unnecessary, I guess. We don't necessarily have to say that, huh?
Yeah, but we're pretty much every Wednesday. We don't
yeah, but
take
we're pretty
holiday
much
breaks.
every Wednesday. Yeah, we've been around since dinosaurs. So, and by that I mean I'm lying.
Dinosaurs.
So,
Dinosaurs were around 29 years ago.
That's right. That's about accurate. The bones don't lie. You can go see them right now. They look. They
right.
You can go touch them. I'm sure they don't let you touch dinosaur bones.
No.
But illegally speaking, you could touch them. Don't do it.
What are we?
Well,
what?
Don't. Bye.
Oh my gosh.
Thanks for joining Don't Worry Wednesday.
Love
we love you. Bye. Peace.